Known for its action-packed and murderous plot, Macbeth is Shakespeare's shortest tragedy, based on the real Macbeth, who was a Scottish warrior who killed the previous monarch and became the new king of Scotland. Contrary to the events in the play, Macbeth was a great king in real life. Shakespeare portrayed Macbeth to be a vigilant, violent, and often delusional character for a couple of reasons. The political climate in England at the time was very unstable, caused by the death of Queen Elizabeth I, and she produced no heir to the throne. King James of Scotland took her place, but not everyone was happy about it, so there were obviously many assassination attempts on the Scottish king. Moreover, Shakespeare's portrayal of Macbeth allows us to think about some important questions not simply about politics and power, but also the meaning or the meaninglessness of life. How much power do we really have over our fate? Do we really matter, or are we just walking shadows in the end? What makes us human, after all? In this video, I'll walk you through the story of Shakespeare's Macbeth with a look at some of the important quotations in the play. The play begins with the sound of thunder and the flash of lightning, followed by the first appearance of the three witches as they await Macbeth's arrival. On the other end, Macbeth and Banquo have just defeated some rebels and are on their way back to Scotland. During the encounter between Macbeth and the witches proclaimed three prophecies. All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. All hail Macbeth, that shall be king hereafter. Stirred by the ambiguity in these words, Macbeth writes his wife a letter to tell her all about it. Both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth become blinded by their greedy ambition and the witches' prophecies, and devise a plot to murder King Duncan in his sleep. Despite the hallucination of a floating dagger and doubt, by the way, if you ever hallucinate about something like a dagger, you gotta question your life choices. Macbeth manages to pull it off with the help and coercion from Lady M. After his first taste of murder, Macbeth is doomed to the downward spiraling path of becoming a bloodthirsty murderer. He kills the two servants of Duncan, and he sends three murderers to kill Banquo's and Macduff's family because the witches also prophesied that Banquo's children will be the future king. While he successfully seizes the throne, he battles yet again with his guilt for killing the generous king and his comrades. During a banquet scene, Macbeth claims that he sees the ghost of Banquo. Such a deranged hallucination leads us to think about whether the relentless climb is worth it after all. Macbeth decides to look for the Weir sisters once more, and perhaps have another glimpse into the unseeable future. The witches offer him three other prophecies, the most important of which states that none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. Satisfied with the witches' words, Macbeth sends murderers to Macduff and his family. As the sole survivor of this carnage, Macduff begins his revenge against Macbeth. Meanwhile, Lady Macbeth, however determined and strong-willed she seems, cannot escape the ubiquitous smell of guilt and shame. During one of her sleepwalking episodes, the doctor observes that Lady M is desperately trying to wash away the blood on her hands. Driven to madness, she eventually commits suicide off stage and thus triggered the famous monologue performed by Macbeth, meditating on the meaninglessness and absurdity of his mere existence. The final scene of the play centers upon the duel between Macbeth and Macduff. Macbeth, thinking that no one is of woman born, is confident about winning the duel. However, Macduff reveals that he was ripped out of his mother's womb. True to the witch's prophecy, Macduff, who is not of woman born, kills Macbeth, and Duncan's son, Malcolm, takes the throne as the new king of Scotland. Despite the seeming restoration of order and peace by the end of the play, some reader may think that another rebellion is brewing in the background. However, an unsettling ending that offers no resolution and appears to be the beginning of yet another cycle of violent bloodshed is perhaps a signature of Shakespeare's works. While the play is most known for its cruel portrayal of the thin line between madness and ambition, traitor and hero, fate and agency, we may take a microscopic look about how the use of paradoxical language and gender ambiguity allow us to examine the complexity of our existence and the divided self. In the very first scene of Macbeth, the witches make their dramatic entrance, and the scene ends with this famous line: "Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air." It is a paradox. It is also a riddle to be solved by the audience and by Macbeth. Can something be fair and foul at the same time? Well, yes, it can be. An object or an idea can appear to be fair to one person and foul to another. Or sometimes we just cannot tell whether something is foul or fair. When we look at the fog, how do we know it is not really polluted air? Sometimes there's no way to tell between the reality and the appearance of certain things. Just as we do not know if Macbeth is the innocent flower or the serpent that is hidden underneath. Gender ambiguity plays a huge role in Macbeth, reinforcing and challenging the category of masculinity and femininity. Shakespeare questions what constitutes acting like a man in this play. Is killing or possessing the will to kill an essential quality of a man? Lady Macbeth unsexes herself, stripping her feminine nature as a means to render herself capable of cruelty, and accuses Macbeth for being a coward and thus unmanly. We cannot neglect the fact that during the English Renaissance, all roles, male or female, were played by male actors on stage. The ambiguity of gender roles had always been materialized in Shakespeare's theatrical world. On Shakespeare's stage, the women are really men and the men the woman. After the murder of Macduff's wife and children, Malcolm urges Macduff to dispute it like a man. To which Macduff replies, "But I must also feel it as a man." If Lady M's definition for manliness is direst cruelty and determination of feelings, Macduff's response reflects the possibility of defining masculinity with one's sensitivity and emotions. But of course, in both cases, murder is still what makes you a man. The witch's elaborate scenes open up a space for women. It is a subversive and paradoxical space. The women are at once within and without, embodying different sexes simultaneously. Lady M's ability to declare the unsexing of herself and her role in controlling Macbeth in their marriage entangle with her inability to cope with the trauma of the murder. The women in this place are deeply flawed, sinful, and destructive. Yet we hear their words when they speak. Most importantly, Macbeth acts according to these women's words. Perhaps the play is saying, if it weren't for all those women, yes, women are largely responsible for the chaos and the tragedies in this play. However, there's one important thing that these female characters possess that cannot be denied: power. Thank you for watching.